Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week's theme where we explore the genre of post-hardcore with a band that I don't think I've heard of before. They're called Ken Mode. We're going to be looking at something off of their 2023 album titled Void. This track is These Wires. Let's dive in and see what Ken Mode is bringing to the table today. Like the very subtle snare. I can't tell if that's ghost notes or sonic vibrations. I'm gonna guess ghost notes. It sounds great though. Very haunting. Of dark. Ooh, the piano adds a nice uplift out of it though.
I can barely feel these wires now. I do not feel like this will ever end.
Very different vocal style than I'd expect for the genre.
I can barely feel these wires now. Will this never end?
Interesting phrasing. Because it's semi-spoken word. Yeah, you don't really want to hold out syllables. So it creates interesting phrasing of where syllables stop and the next one starts. I like the tom energy here, very driving, and this can just kind of float, although of course the drummer's going bonkers here too. I really like the drummer's sense of melodic writing too. lot of interesting rhythmic placement here. The guitar and the drums having different accent patterns. Massive bass. I like how the piano brings in a levity in timbre but not in melody. It just comes off as haunting. Yeah, slight retardando there, becoming more gradual, more pronounced. They're definitely a vibe group. Not to discount the riff writing, but so much of this song is based around size of instrumentation, heaviness of idea and sound, and darkness. It's big, it's heavy, it's dark throughout this entire song. The riffs themselves do change. I think some of them are a little better than others, but generally speaking, there's a nice consistency throughout. But they all sort of do the same job. And this is one of those songs that you either enjoy the vibe and you're fine that it's 8 minutes of it, or you're probably like me, where it's a good vibe, could use a little bit of contrast. But I think generally speaking, like I said, if you're here for it, it's great. I think Ken Mode's doing a fantastic job at finding variety, of finding different ways to say this one sound. But a lot of the song comes down to size. I mean, the sound of everything is just so massive. It doesn't matter if it's the guitar or the bass or the drums or even the vocals. That hardcore yell in there has a little bit of extra oomph to it, a little bit of extra width and power. A lot of that is coming from the vocalist, but the production's doing a little bit to beef that up as well, because this whole song is just sighs, and it is a song to me that is about a sort of depressive weight. No matter what you try to do to get away from it, you can't. It's just this, it just crushes and pushes down on you. I find it interesting then that there are moments where there is a bit more levity to it. There are times when the weight lightens up a little bit to create a vacuum of sound, an opening of space for a lighter vocal style to come out. We had the pure spoken word, the clean stuff at the beginning, and then we had a harsher spoken word in the middle of the song somewhere too. We had to carve out room for that because those vocals are smaller. They would get lost in everything else. It does feel like there's a bit of an opening, a possibility to get out of here, an exit, but it never goes towards that, does it? It always stacks back up. The weight always comes back in full power. The other way that we deviate from that, though, is the piano. It shows up around the 2 minute mark, I think, and then in the final section that leads towards the outro. I find this is interesting. As I mentioned, its timbre is very bright, it's singular, it's narrow, it isn't this big, blunt sound like everything else. To me, it brings a little bit of hope to the song both times it shows up, but when you actually listen to the melody that's being played, it's just as dreary as everything else. False hope, I think, is the best way to describe it, and I think it's interesting then that they chose to use it as the outro, to get rid of the weight and just have the piano. Almost as if the end is some sort of delusion that this person is allowing themselves to go into in order to have something a little bit more positive in their life, even if it isn't real. At least that's how I interpret it. It's also introduced early on before we hit the outro, and then the outro is an evolution of that final section, just without all of the heavy instrumentation. And it happens like that. There's the piano and the guitars and the bass and the drums are all doing their things, and then beat 4 ends, and we go to beat 1 of the next bar, and the band's gone. It's just the piano now. It's a bit more serene. It feels roomier. We can actually breathe here, but that doesn't make it happier. It also doesn't fully resolve. It has an element of finality to it, sure, but as far as I could hear it in my head, I was really expecting it to go one more note down to fully resolve on the home of this rather than where it ended. At least to me, implying a false conclusion might be how I interpret that, which further supports my idea that it's a delusional ending, allowing yourself to drift into this fake positivity because it's better than the crushing weight of reality. That's how I generally feel this song, narratively. There's also a lot of anger and pain in the vocals. I don't really have much to add on to that, but it does certainly solidify the overall feeling of this song and fits with the general weight and intensity of the instrumental work. The only other thing I think I really want to bring up then is the rhythmic element in this. I was trying to piece this together the whole time. The drums are seemingly effortless in their ability to continue to devise new patterns around every turn. I really enjoy that. The drum work is just a joy to listen to, and it's a very cool constant evolution too, where we will start with something a bit more foundational. Sure, it'll have a bit of syncopation in it. It won't just be quarter notes or something like that, but it will be a bit more structured, a bit more foundational. And after doing that for four repetitions, we'll add something to it. We'll throw in a couple of snare rolls. Maybe we'll introduce the tom. Maybe we'll put it in an offbeat cymbal hit. Just something to spruce it up a little bit. Something to take it to that next level. After four repetitions of that, maybe we'll take it up to another level. Maybe we're going to change sections entirely, in which case the drummer brings in a new foundation and then levels that up. And this is a fairly consistent element to the drumming composition on this track, is to introduce a simpler form and then a more complex form of an idea. And this allows the song to evolve, not just in a way that keeps it interesting, where there's a dynamic element to every time that we repeat a phrase, but it also allows the drums to be more expressive while still retaining a more palatable standard feel to them. The flip-flop back and forth could probably also be read thematically, but I don't have a read on that yet. But the flipping back and forth between simplicity and complexity, maybe that could be read as a larger idea and not just a mechanical one, not just a functional one. But the drum work in here is, I love it. Interesting rhythmic ideas. The rhythms typically clash with what the guitarist is doing too. So there's a variety of like rhythmic pulses or accent patterns in the song. It keeps things kind of lighter than expected. If this was a doom metal band, we would have just stuck with like heavy quarter notes and really retained the weight of it. But here there's a lot of syncopation throughout. It makes you want to move your body a little bit more than you would imagine a crushing weight would imply. I wonder if that's just their style or if there's any purpose for that dichotomy. But I really enjoyed the whole rhythmic element in this, and I consistently found myself gravitating towards the drummer and then venturing out to see what the guitarist was doing alongside that. The last thing, I know I said the last one was going to be the last thing, but repetition. There's a lot of it in here, but much like the drums tend to do one phrasing, usually three repetitions with the bass, so four times through, and then variation on it. We see the same thing elsewhere too. We will typically see an instrumental bit with three repetitions and then put the vocals on top of that, and then do another phrase with the vocals on top. This is usually where the drummer changes things up, but we can also sometimes see where the drummer keeps the style because the vocals are the new addition, and then after that, then the drummer will put on their variation once the vocals are gone as the next phrase's variation. And it keeps things fresh, but it does keep this feeling of sameness throughout, of making sure that an idea is exposed enough that the repetition is felt, but not lingering for too long. But it also really solidifies this feeling of being stuck. Making steps, baby steps, but still not ever getting out from under the weight of this thing. The repetition really leans into the cyclicality and permanence of this feeling, this atmosphere on the narrator. No matter how far they get away from it, no matter how much variation they put on these ideas, no matter how many different riffs they'll explore, the song is just heavy and weighty and gritty and large, and they can't seem to escape the shadow of it. And I think the repetition really leans into that. I did find myself thinking the song was a bit long at 8 minutes in length. But I think, at least from an artistic perspective, it probably was the right way to go about doing this. Let me hit some lyrics on this and see what's going on there. I think I may have been a bit more accurate than I expected to be. There is a lot of repetition lyrically in here as well. The concept of a never ending state of being is something presented not just directly in the words, but also a phrase that is repeated over and over and over again. We have the phrase, I do not feel like this will ever end, will this never end, show up multiple times. There's also the chorus, I think, which says, why would anything feel right again? Basically stating that we can't ever go back to the way things were. The end of the song says, just let me rest again. So this is, again, stating that things are never going to return back to a state of normalcy. He just wants rest. That's not a really big ask, but doesn't seem like something that's on the table either. The track ends with, I can't feel like this much longer, a forced and helpless closure. Forcing a helpless closure, making something end even if it isn't ready to end. That kind of reinstates my idea about or supports the idea that I have that the song ends on a positive note out of delusion, just trying to make something a little bit better. And it ends with saying, I can barely feel these wires now, will this never end? So again, the cyclicality and permanence of the situation. Now, just bringing up those few lines, I have already covered half the song lyrically. Like I mentioned, there is a ton of repetition, bringing back a single phrase from earlier and just saying it 2 to 4 times. Um, there's a lot of, I think, repeating phrases for effect to make sure that the phrase itself isn't something passed over and glossed over, but instead you really make sure that the listener or the reader in this case, since I'm reading these, understands that this is an important line, that this is a core aspect of the song. Now, there is a linear stanza in here. It says, slight misted perception, pulsating pains, this hopeless endeavor. You are depleting me, a tarnished punishment, lost in this cyclical thought. Misted perception. So, not being able to see clearly. Pulsating pains. We continue. We continue the P sound there. Perception, pulsating pains. Although referring to the whole thing as a hopeless endeavor, I don't know if that's this punishment that's a hopeless endeavor or trying to get out of it. Regardless, he states, you are depleting me. I'm lost in this cyclical thought. After this stating, why would anything feel right again? Before deviating, instead of going into that chorus and repeating it again, we use it in the middle of the stanza saying, brought right back to where we left off, falling off and falling apart. Then going to the chorus, why would anything feel right again? So the idea of being trapped in wires, not even being able to feel them anymore, and finding all of this to be a punishment, I wonder if this is about the digital age, social media, and being trapped in the wires. As is it Frost? Is that the name of their album? Life in the Wires? But it talks about it as a punishment of something that depletes you, of being lost in a cyclical thought. We have one more linear stanza towards the end of the track saying, every last piece of weakened resolve, let there be a calming reassurance. Let me believe there's something more despite knowing full well that there's not. So basically saying at this point, I don't even have the ability to fight back anymore. I just need to be told that things will be better after this. Even if they're not going to be, I need to know this. You need to lie to me. I need to find this delusion within me. Which really reinforces the ending again, where I believe it's a delusional safety or comfort that wraps the song up. But I really think this is about all of the mental manipulation that social media developers use in order to keep people locked in and engaged, which engagement tends to be negative, as was found out from Meta a few years back, that angry posts or divisive posts are those who are going to get the most engagement. And so that's what they ended up pushing, creating a cycle of anger and hatred and rage and division, which we have seen where that's taken us in the world since, the past 15 years or so that social media has really become dominant. Um, but he talks about being drained, being of weakened resolve, not even being able to fight back anymore, just going with it now. This is a punishment that he just has to endure. And I think that speaks to the psychological elements that go into crafting the UX of a lot of this stuff. Everything from, what is it, dark patterns, is that what they're called? That kind of keep you locked in, but even infinite scrolling is a way to help you lose track of time. If you ever reached an end and had to click next page, you might turn the app off. It's a lot of stuff that keeps us locked in, even though it's against our best interests. And I think this song kind of speaks about that, knowing that it isn't the best for us, but feeling like we can't do anything else. We are locked into this to a point that we barely even feel the wires anymore. Can this end? Will it ever end? If it did, would anything even feel right anymore? Our dopamine receptors are so used to being fired on instantly, repeatedly for hours at a time as we scroll endlessly through this stuff. It would take a long time for that level of dopamine interaction to ever, for lower levels of it, to ever feel normal. And trust me, I know it, I get it. I'm human too, right? One thing I've commented on over the years of doing this is how I feel like my attention span has waned over the years. Even when it comes to movies, if a movie's over 2 hours long, it's probably going to be a two-sessioner for me. I'll watch half one day and half the next day because I will get to a point where it just isn't activating the dopamine as much as I feel like I need. So I'll go play, a video game that's like huge spectacle, constantly rewarding me, lots of bright flashy lights, or I'll go watch a YouTube video that's, instant gratification. I'll go, whatever. Hit up Discord and try to find a conversation to spark up. I'm not immune to it either. Can we ever get back to the way we were? Will life outside of the wires ever feel right again? This is the kind of technological and modern society exploration lyrically that I really love. It doesn't feel vapid, it doesn't feel surface level. I mean, anytime we kind of come up with songs that are the lyrics are like social media is bad, things were better before. I tend to say I agree with that, but it's just such a surface level take on it that I kind of feel negative towards the lyrical component, but I've never really had a song that I think I can point towards and say, this is good, this is it. Um, at least not on the channel, because Digital Veil by Human Abstract, I think, does a fantastic job of it. And that's one I can always point towards. But here on the channel, I can finally say, hey, look, we've explored some lyrics on this topic that I think are really well done. And the music goes along with it fantastically too. This just weight crushing, the shadow that we can't escape. Yeah, these are my thoughts on Ken Mode's These Wires. What are yours? Did you enjoy this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own interpretation of things. Please put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.